Well, I'm here with my dear friend, Daryl Davis. Daryl, thank you so much for joining us.
Well,
Uh,
thank you for having me, Larry. I appreciate it.
yeah, this is a real honor. And Daryl is a superstar, and I'm so happy that you can get to meet him. Uh, Daryl, you've devoted much of your life to addressing not just music, although you are an internationally renowned musician, and we're going to hear a little bit about your experience there, but also in terms of race relations, breaking incredible ground and breaking down the barriers between races in your own life courageously, but also with amazing heart and sincerity that's moved so many people. So I really want our listeners to get a taste of who you are and what you've accomplished. Maybe we could start out with a little brief clip from a song that you and I put together called I've Been Blessed. It sort of encompasses both your music and also your vision for all people coming together. So let me try to share this.
No matter our faith or the shade of our skin, we've been blessed by the living God. No matter our faith or the shade of our skin, we've been blessed by the living God. No matter our faith or the shade of our skin, we all got the same blood flowing within. No matter our faith or the shade of our skin, we've been blessed by the living God. We've been blessed. Oh Lord, we've been blessed. We've been blessed. Lord, we've been blessed. We've been blessed. Oh Lord, we've been blessed. We've been blessed. We've been blessed. We've been blessed. Oh, we've been blessed by the living God.
Amazing music. You and I met at a little coffee shop where I was playing guitar, and you heard one of my songs and you said, boy, I want to help you and produce your music. And then you helped me to put that together as part of a gospel project. I'm so grateful for that. So tell us a little bit about how you got into music, how you got into your whole work with racial reconciliation. Now you're an adjunct professor at Hopkins speaking about those things. Please share a little bit about that with the audience.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Let's start at the beginning. I was a child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service, State
Uh-huh.
Department. So I grew up as an American embassy kid, traveling all around the world, starting at the age of 3. And you live in a foreign country, work with the embassy for 2 years, and then you return back home here to the States. You're here for a little while, and then you get reassigned to another country abroad for 2 years. So back and forth were the formative years of my life, starting in 1961.
Wow.
And so I was introduced to school abroad. My first schooling, I did kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade, all in different schools in different countries. And my classmates abroad were from all over the world because anybody who had an embassy stationed where we had our American embassy, all of their kids went to the same school. So this
Uh-huh.
little girl sitting over here might be from Czechoslovakia, this kid here from Japan, that kid from Nigeria, that kid from Italy. You know, it was, if you opened the door to my classroom abroad and put your head in, you would say, oh my goodness, this looks like a United Nations of little children, because that's exactly what it was. However, Lawrence, whenever I would come back home here to my own country and go to school for the in-between grades, uh, I was either in all black schools or black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And just because desegregation was passed by our U.S. Supreme Court in 1954, 4 years before I was born, it did not mean that schools integrated overnight. It took years and years and years of getting this together. And even today in 2025, in some parts of our country, we still struggle with integration. So one of the times I came home was 1968. I was age 10. I was in the fourth grade. I was in a newly integrated school in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of 2 black children in the entire school, myself in fourth grade and a little black girl in second grade.
Wow.
So consequently, all of my friends, being fourth graders, were all white. And some of my male friends were members of the Cub Scouts, and they invited me to join, which I did. And we had a parade. I was the only Black Scout anywhere in the area, and people were smiling and cheering and waving as we marched down the street with other participants in the parade. I was the only Black participant until we got to a certain point in this parade route when suddenly I began getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and just small debris from the street
Oh
by
my
just a
goodness.
small yeah just by a small group of spectators off to my right. And it was only maybe 4 or 5 people who were yelling and screaming and throwing things. And my first thought was, oh, these people over here, they don't like the Scouts. That's how naive I was because I had never experienced anything like that. It wasn't until my Scout leaders came running and covered me with their own bodies and escorted me out of the danger that I realized no other Scouts, were getting hit. And I'm the target. So now I'm wondering, what had I done? I didn't do anything to these people. Why are they throwing things? And I kept questioning my Scout leaders, and all they would do was kind of shush me and rush me along, tell me to keep moving, everything's going to be okay. They never answered the question. I had no clue why this was happening. And this is why it's so important to understand my upbringing. I was not exposed to this kind of behavior. So when I got home, I still had no clue. But my mom and dad were at the house when I arrived, and I was all bruised up and bleeding a little bit, and they were cleaning me up and putting band-aids on me and asking me, "How did you trip and fall down and get all
Hmm.
scraped up?" I told them, "I didn't fall down." I told them what happened. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down at the age of 10 and explained racism to me. Believe it or not, at the age of 10, I had never even heard the word racism. So this was a whole new thing to me. And it was incredulous. My 10-year-old brain could not accept that what they were telling me was true because my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who had never seen me, never spoken to me, knew nothing about me, would want to inflict pain upon me for no other reason than this, the color of my skin. It made no sense, right? So initially, I didn't believe them. But again, this was 1968. A lot of things happened that year. Martin Luther King got assassinated. And so I began to realize, oh, this phenomenon that my parents told me about is true. It does exist. So then I formed a question in my mind, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And that's what put me on this trajectory to learn about racism. Now, let's fast forward from fourth grade. Went on through high school, graduated high school. I graduated college. I majored in music. Got my, I had no intentions of becoming a musician. Trust me. I didn't even play an instrument. Throughout high school, I was never in any of the bands. Marching band, jazz band, concert band, whatever. None of that. I liked music, but I did not play. And I had other ideas in mind to become. But I'd gone to see Elvis Presley. I went to see Chuck Berry. I always liked the music, right? And it was then I decided that's what I want to do. I want to be a musician. And why? Because those two guys had touched millions and millions of people all over the world with their music, people that they would never see, people that they would never meet, but they had somehow affected those people and
Hmm.
made them happy. And that's what I want to do. I want to make people happy. So I chose to become a musician. Of course, my parents freaked out. They were having none of it, right? So we went round and round and round. But I finally won. And I went to college. I majored in music. I got my degree. And, I became a musician. So I got to play with Chuck Berry for 32 years, play piano for him. Not every gig, but many, many gigs. I continued to go see Elvis. I saw him about 14 times. I met him very briefly. And, I got to work with a lot of my idols, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, a whole ton of people that I admired, Pine Top Perkins, Johnny Johnson, many, many people. And this, enhanced my life. It also sent me traveling. So I have performed in all 50 states.
Hmm.
When you combine my childhood travels around the world with my adulthood travels now as a lecturer and musician performer, when you combine those two sets of travels, I have been to 64 countries on 6 continents. And I can tell you what I've learned. What I've learned is this: no matter how far I've gone from our country, the United States, whether it's right next door to Canada or right next door to Mexico or halfway around the globe, no matter who I meet, people who may not look like me, they don't speak my language, or perhaps they don't worship as I do, maybe they don't worship at all, I always conclude one thing, and that is everybody I have encountered is a human being. And as such, every human being wants these 5 core values in their lives. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be respected. We all want to be heard. We all want to be treated fairly and truthfully. And we all want the same things for our family as anybody else would want for their family. And if we can learn to apply those 5 core values or any of those 5 values when we find ourselves in an adversarial situation or in a society or culture in which we are unfamiliar or uncomfortable, I will guarantee you, Lawrence, that your navigation of that situation, that culture, that society will be much more smooth, much more positive, and much more productive.
Wow. You're a real revolutionary.
So, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? That was the driving force in me at the age of 10. I began buying books as a young kid and even through my adulthood on black supremacy, white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klan, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here, anti-Semitism, racism, you name it. I've got a vast library on this stuff. But the books did not answer my question as to how somebody could hate me. And when I would ask people, they would say, "Oh, Daryl, some people are just like that. That's just the way it is." Well, that's not an answer that placates my curiosity. So who better to ask that question? How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Than to ask someone who would go so far as to join an organization that has over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them, who don't believe as they believe. So I began seeking out members of the KKK, neo-Nazis, other white supremacists, to sit them down and question them. And I became the first black author to write a book on the Ku Klux Klan from the perspective of in-person, face-to-face interviews with Klan leaders and Klan members and neo-Nazis.
And what's the name of that book?
Well, the first book was called Clandestine Relationships, spelled with a K. And I just released my second book. It's called The Klan Whisperer, and it can be found on Amazon. I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. So, I've been to a ton of Klan rallies, right? I've been doing this for 45 years. This is a picture from 30 years ago here in the state of Maryland. See, you can see there.
Yep.
I'm a lot younger. The fire on the cross is going out. There are a lot more Klan people there, but when the rally is over, they go over to the side where there are picnic tables and they have food and beverages and stuff. But you always leave some Klansmen around the burning cross because they don't want sparks to fly and set things on fire. So I asked this person if he would pose for a picture with me, which obviously he did. And this one here is the same thing. This is about 9 years ago in the state of Missouri. Again, there are more Klansmen and Klanswomen there, but the rally is over. So those Klansmen are watching the cross to make sure, nothing catches on fire when the sparks go flying off. And what do I do with these things? I converse with people. I talk. As I said, a missed opportunity for conversation is a missed opportunity for reconciliation. So that's what I do there. And you see the gentleman with the mask and the green cross that I'm speaking with. When I came on that rally ground, he threatened my life. And that was about almost 9 years ago. Every Christmas since then, he sends me a Christmas present, and he is no longer involved. Amazing. So that's, the power of conversation, of applying those 5 core values.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break. I want to just share a little bit about Peace Stars, but then we'll come back and I want to talk to you about your book and about your lecturing and education about race relations. Thank you. Music is an aspect of our awareness, of our experience that connects deeply to our heart, directly to our heart. People are not only touched by music, they're moved to action. Feeling, experience can be changed through a song. People can be brought to tears by music. So when we're deeply touched by something, then we're moved to act. We're moved to change the way we see the world. Music is so powerful. It's so profound. To learn more about Peace Stars, please visit peacestars.tv. And we hope you'll make a contribution of any size to help us to complete our pilot video featuring 2 fabulous artists in northern Nigeria. Thank you so much. I just want to read a few of the endorsements on your new book, which is going to be available in a couple of days on Amazon.
Actually, it's available right now.
Ah, well done. First is from Joe Rogan. Daryl Davis is proving his amazing accomplishments that even in the most radical people like the KKK and National Socialist Movement, he is converting people. You've had 2 interviews with Joe Rogan, and I understand there's a 3rd one in the works. Is that right?
Yes, I'm always happy to come back on whenever he invites me.
I mean, like maybe 80 million people have seen your interviews. It's amazing impact. Can you speak a little bit about that relationship?
Sure, Joe Rogan is one of the finest interviewers in the world, in my opinion. He knows his subject. He's done his homework. He knows the questions to ask, and he allows the guest to answer them. I've done literally thousands of interviews. Some have been great. Some have been, not so great. But he knows how to handle the guests. He knows the material, and he knows when to ask the question, what questions to ask. It can be provocative, and he allows the guest to give an answer, whether he agrees with it or not, or whether the guest agrees with him or not. And this is how you convey information and give the audience the opportunity to think and give them new perspectives from the interviewer and from the guests. Sometimes they align, sometimes they don't align. But that's what he allows to happen organically. And that's what makes for a great interview and an interviewer.
Amazing. Here's one. Daryl Davis has proven that when you open your heart to someone, you give them the chance to open their heart to you. Morgan Freeman. Can you speak about that relationship?
Well, Morgan Freeman came to my home and interviewed me here for a series he was doing for, I believe it was National Geographic. And there were 7 topics chosen out of many, many that he had the option to do for a 7-part series, and I was one of them. So he was interested in my work with the Klan and things like that. He's from Mississippi.
Yep.
And he has a club, a music club in Mississippi, which I've played at, and called Ground Zero. So anyway, he came here and we talked, and he was asking me about, my relationship with the Klan and things like that, and what would a Klansman think about this, that, and the other. And I said, well, listen, why don't I just introduce you to a former Klansman who came out? I helped, get him out of this. So he agreed, and we flew down to Memphis, Tennessee, and we met with this former Klan leader, friend of mine, and we had a wonderful time. And this episode aired on National Geographic Channel.
Amazing. Here's one. Said, the work that Daryl is doing to bridge the divide sets an example for our nation and world to follow in light of the current racial tensions. Reverend Dr. Bernice King. Can you speak about that?
Well, Reverend Dr. Bernice King is the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and she runs the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia. She has had me come there and speak. A true honor to speak there on Martin Luther King Day. I've spoken there a few times. And again, she asked me about my work in the Klan. I said, well, how about next time I come, I bring a former Klansman with me.
There you go.
And, she paused for a moment and she goes, you know what? Yes, that would be wonderful. That exemplifies what her father believed. Her father said this. He had he had many famous speeches. One of his most famous was, I have a dream. And in that I have a dream speech, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. He said that he had a dream that one day the sons of former slave owners would sit down to the table of brotherhood with the sons of former slaves. And that's exactly what I have done.
Amazing.
And I brought to the table one of the sons of former slave owners, one who went so far to join the Ku Klux Klan in Indianola, Mississippi, and rose through the ranks to become a Grand Dragon, state leader, rose through the ranks even higher to become an Imperial Wizard, national leader. And I was instrumental in influencing him and being the impetus for him to leave that hate behind and renounce that ideology. Today, he goes around and speaks out against, that ideology and tries to de-radicalize people who are still in the movement and prevent young people from going down that rabbit hole. So when he was in the movement, he literally hated Martin Luther King, because the KKK is about getting everybody apart.
Yep.
Martin Luther King was about bringing everybody together. And so he, when I brought him to the King Center to speak with me and Dr. Bernice King on Martin Luther King Day, he told her, that when he was in the movement, he disliked, what her father stood for, etc. But he saw the light and he apologized to her, and they hugged. They hugged. This is true reconciliation. To see a former Klan leader hugging the daughter of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King.
It's mind blowing. It's amazing. How many members of of the Klan and other white supremacy organizations have you persuaded to abandon those organizations?
Well, I stopped counting. And I don't say that I don't, the media says I persuaded or I converted or I was the reason or whatever. I don't say that. I say that I am the impetus. They persuaded, they converted themselves.
Yeah.
I gave them reason to rethink. But the number now is over 200. But understand, it's not overnight. It's over a period of 45 years, right? So far, I'm still doing it.
Yep.
But it's nothing that just happened in the last week or two.
That's amazing. And there's one here, interesting one, from President Bill Clinton. Daryl Davis is an interesting fellow. He went out and met with members of the Ku Klux Klan and got them to talk with him, and he lived to tell the tale. Can you speak about your relationship with the former president?
Sure. I've known Bill Clinton for a while now. I played at both of his inaugurations. And again, Chuck Berry was one of his favorite musicians. So I played there. Yeah, I played there with Chuck Berry and Willie Nelson, Michael Jackson, Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers, Judy Collins, Dionne Warwick, Barbara Streisand, a lot of his favorite entertainers. And I also played the American Achievement Awards, which he was a guest. And so, I've known him, for a while, and I was chosen to be someone he wanted to interview for the Clinton Global Initiative. And that's where that quote came from.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, we're thrilled that you're on our advisory committee. Peace Stars is seeking to emulate some of the amazing work that you've done between the black and white race to try to bridge gaps between both sides of some of the historic conflicts that are going on around the world. Most of them people are not so aware of, but there's over 100 violent conflicts going on, and people are getting killed in countries all around the world. I think music is incredibly powerful in terms of reaching people's heart, like you were saying, with Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and others. If we can harness that and focus that to bridge these historic conflicts, it's going to be very, very significant, and it can really help change the world, just as you've been doing so powerfully in terms of race relations. I really appreciate your support for what we're doing. If they're interested in having you perform or speak, what's the best way for them to arrange that?
Yeah, go to the website and there's contact information there, and they can certainly, reach out.
There you go. You're one of the most hardworking musicians that I know, and I know a lot of musicians. How many performances do you typically play in a year? And then how many speeches do you typically give in a year? You're just like nonstop. You come home to see Brenda every now and then, but you're just all over the place.
It keeps me, as I say, it keeps me on the road, but off the street.
Yeah, I think close to 200 performances a year, something like that, or
I've cut back a little bit, so it might be 198 now. But it is quite a few. It used to be over 200.
Yeah, I encourage our audience to get an opportunity to hear Daryl live. It's exciting. It's electrifying performances. Such a talent. I'm so deeply grateful, and let's do this again. I really appreciate this.
Thank you very much.
To learn more about Peace Stars, please visit peacestars.tv. And we hope you'll make a contribution of any size to help us to complete our pilot video featuring 2 fabulous artists in northern Nigeria. Thank you so much.